Heretic is a 2024 film written and directed by Scott Beck and Bryan. It stars Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. After browsing the director's IMDb pages, I haven't seen any of their films. Their names both sound familiar to me, but they seem to be pretty much also rooted in horror, and I totally respect that, of course. And the plot here follows two female Mormon missionaries on their way to the home of a reclusive Englishman hoping to convert him. So I'm just going to address the elephant in the room here. Hugh Grant plays Mr. Reed, and he is kind of like the main character here. So, like a lot of people my age, I remember a ton of his films, from back in the 90s growing up, mostly rom-com stuff. But I guess he was in the Lair of the White Worm back in 1988, which I don't remember him being in. But he's a good actor. I think he's always been a good actor. He's always seemed like a likable dude. But I did not expect him to show up in a film like this. Maybe it's just me. But I have to say, he is, as you have heard, likely many times if you've watched or read reviews of this movie, he's great here. He's absolutely great. Don't get me wrong. All three of the characters, pull their weight. But Grant just brings everything we ever liked about him in the past while taking things in a much darker direction. And Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East are also very, very good as the missionaries. And on the topic of those two, I really liked the sort of like dichotomy, between the two of them, with Thatcher, playing Sister Barnes, her character having more of an atypical backstory, while East's Sister Paxton. Her character is like kind of your very more typical Mormon, I guess you could say. And as someone who has followed religion for many years, and has even had Mormon friends in the past, I feel like I can say that pretty comfortably. I've known quite a few Mormons in my years. Like, Sister Barnes wasn't born into Mormonism. She converted along with her family, but she's definitely done her homework. She's studied and she's converted way more people than Sister Paxton, who grew up in Utah and was, pretty much born into the religion. And early on in the film, you see just like a brief day in the life of a missionary, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. You see the sisters get bullied, and you see how aware they are of what the secular general public thinks about them. But beyond that, 95-ish% of the film takes place in Mr. Reed's house. And beyond, seeing the trailer a couple of times, I tried to go into this as cold as possible. Because I do love, as I've said before, I do love religious horror, and I was super intrigued by the premise of this movie. Mr. Reed is a very intellectual man, I think it's fair to say. He spent much of his life rigorously studying religion, which I also can relate to. He's been on a lifelong mission to find the one true religion in which all of them claim to be, and he points that out many times throughout this. This is a very smart script, at least I think, and Hugh Grant delivers his dialogue as if it were just another day for him, as if it almost seems effortless for him. He just he just keeps talking, and the dialogue just flows out of him so naturally. It is impressive, because again, I guess he is kind of delivering his dialogue the same way that he always has. I guess it's just different subject matter. He's a professional actor with many decades of experience, after all, so I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise. But I felt like I could have listened to him talk all day long, if I'm being honest. He's charming, he's witty, he's funny, but as the conversation between him and the sisters goes on, he seems to have a dark side that they didn't really anticipate, as he starts to kind of slowly and methodically challenges, their beliefs. Now, like I said, I went into this fairly cold. The only thing I really knew for sure is that the critics were really loving this movie, is just getting these rave reviews. And that kind of leaves me a bit confused, because I didn't really care all that much for this film. The first act had me very interested, for sure. I liked the direction things were going in. The second act still had me interested, maybe a little bit less. But the third act kind of lost me. I felt like it just kind of went off the rails. It works. It's fine. I don't dislike anything about it. But I just kind of left the theater just kind of scratching my head, really, if I'm being honest. And I'm trying to be. Again, very good performances, especially Hugh Grant. But the concept ultimately lost me as the story went on. Maybe I expected something a little darker, maybe a little more horror-oriented. I would definitely call this horror, maybe more thriller with horror elements, which isn't really my cup of tea. You know, I'll watch movies like that from time to time. I don't know. But this film just kind of didn't do it for me as a whole, as much as I really, really wanted it to. So with all the gushing going on with this, I feel weird giving it a sort of a lower score. But that said, I am giving Heretic a 6.5 out of 10, and in my mind, that's pretty generous. So, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those films where I am kind of like, my opinions just don't seem to be lining up with most people's from what I've seen. So, if you really, really liked this movie, let me know. And if you didn't like it, let me know as well. I mean, this is one of those where I am curious to hear your guys' thoughts. I mean, I'm always curious to hear your guys' thoughts, but I guess especially with this one. Other than that, I hope you guys are having a good day. Cheers.